Number 9. Congo River Crocodile Attack. In 2010, 3 kayakers embarked on a daring expedition to explore the Congo's Leopard River, one of the most dangerous waterways in Africa. Included among the group was Henry Coetzee, a South African adventurer and guide, Chris Corbulic, a young photographer from Oregon, and Ben Stooksbury, a veteran explorer from California. The trio faced many challenges along their journey, such as rapids, waterfalls, hippos, and rebels. But the most terrifying encounter happened on December 7th, when they were ambushed by a huge crocodile that dragged Coetzee under the water. They were the first people in history to attempt to traverse the white water of the Leopard River. The 3 of them were all world-class kayakers, and this was meant to be their greatest challenge yet. To avoid attacks from dangerous animals, the men kayaked very close to one another. In fact, they were only a few feet apart when the attack took place. Stooksbury and Corbulic helplessly observed Coetzee's boat tremble as the crocodile yanked him from the cockpit after it overturned for 20 seconds. The kayak was completely free of any damage, which was discovered shortly after the attack when the boat drifted by. Coetzee, unfortunately, has never been found, and it's presumed that he died during the attack. Number 8. Shark's Bite. A 68-year-old man from Waikoloa had a close encounter with a hungry shark off the coast of Hawaii in December 2022. He was swimming off Malu Bay when a shark bit him on the lower left torso, ripping off a good chunk of flesh. The victim managed to swim 1,200 feet, 366 meters back to shore after fending the shark off with a dice knife. He then alerted other beachgoers, who subsequently called 911. He was taken to a nearby hospital with serious injuries, but miraculously survived the attack. The Hawaii Police Department said in a statement that they were investigating the incident, but have determined that it was a 12-foot, 3.6 meters tiger shark. Attacks like this are rare in Hawaii, but they're not unheard of. According to a news source, there were 3 shark attacks in 2018, and there's only been 5 fatal incidents on record since 1995. The most recent fatality occurred in May 2019 when a California man was killed by a tiger shark off Maui. Experts say that sharks aren't intentionally targeting humans, but may mistake them for prey or act defensively if they feel threatened. They advise swimmers to avoid murky water, dawn and dusk hours, and areas where fish are being caught or cleaned. The victim of the attack may have learned his lesson the hard way, but he can take some comfort in knowing that he gave his attacker indigestion. As one witness joked, that shark must have been really hungry or really stupid. Number 7. Wild Leopard Mayhem. On December 27, 2022, a wild leopard caused panic and injuries in Jorhat, a town in the Indian state of Assam. The animal was looking for food and attacked at least 15 people, including 10 residents and 5 forest officials. The leopard entered the campus of the Rainforest Research Institute, RFRI, in Shenzhen and jumped over a barbed wire fence. It then leaped into a moving van and mauled several people inside. Terrifying footage of the incident that was shared on social media showed the beast lunging at bystanders and vehicles, and in response, the Forest Department launched a rescue operation to capture the leopard. After a 4-hour-long chase, they managed to tranquilize it and take it to a nearby wildlife rescue center. The injured victims were rushed to hospitals in order to have their wounds treated. Some of them suffered serious injuries and fractures. The authorities said that such incidents were rare and that they would monitor the situation closely. So hopefully nothing like this will ever happen again. Number 6. Mauled by a tiger. A 50-year-old Florida man was mauled by a tiger on the afternoon of March 21, 2022, after he walked into the animal's enclosure at an airboat attraction called Wooten's Everglades Airboat Tours. Not surprisingly, the tiger attacked him, which caused significant injuries to both of his arms. He was transported to a hospital by helicopter, but his condition wasn't immediately disclosed. The attraction was shut down by the authorities afterward, so a full investigation could be conducted. The owner of Wooten said that he didn't know why the man entered the enclosure, which had signs warning visitors to stay away. He also said that the tiger that attacked the man was one of 3 that were rescued from a circus and kept at Wooten's for educational purposes. This wasn't the first time that a man was attacked by a tiger in Collier County either. In December 2021, a zookeeper at Naples Zoo was bitten by a tiger while feeding it through a fence. Luckily, though, he survived with minor injuries after being treated at a hospital. The incident raised questions about the safety and regulation of exotic animals in Florida, which is one of the highest numbers of captive tigers in the country. As a result, animal rights activists called for stricter laws and enforcement to prevent such attacks from happening in the future. Number 5. Moo de Cow. A runner who was assaulted by a cow in the Pentlands near Edinburgh, Scotland in August 2020 described how the ordeal left him traumatized and wounded. 53-year-old Mark Hartree unintentionally put himself between a cow and her calf while taking part in a virtual triathlon. He was knocked to the ground by the mother cow, who then responded quite angrily and laid on top of him. After briefly pausing to restrain herself, she continued to smash her head against his before pushing him down once again. However, Hartree fought back, and he was able to scare her away even though he was barely conscious. After reflecting upon the incident, Hartree admitted that trying to shoo the cow away before the attack likely wasn't the best idea. By doing this, the mother thought he was trying to get her away from her babies. A sign now advises runners and walkers to completely avoid the cows. Hartree is also the president of the Carnethy Hill Running Club and released a statement in connection to his own experience that said, "My message to everyone is don't go anywhere near those cows." Number 4. The Killer Whale. At SeaWorld in Orlando, Florida, an experienced trainer was having a normal day at work when things took a turn for the worse. On February 24, 2010, the 40-year-old was performing a routine she'd done many times before. However, on that fateful day, she was killed by one of the killer whales she thought she had a bond with. The volatile and possessive whale Tilikum, who weighed 12,000 pounds, 5,443 kilograms, had been a part of the park since 1992. Some witnesses claim she was pulled into the pool by her hair, while others say she simply fell in. But some people also reported that she was yanked in by her arm. A tourist video camera captured the moments before the assault, but SeaWorld's official film was kept away from the public eye. The employees worked tirelessly to distract Tilikum in an effort to move him into a smaller pool. Eventually, they were successful. However, before they were able to do that, the whale caused multiple injuries to the trainer, Dawn Brancheau, which unfortunately resulted in her death. Brancheau was ultimately killed by drowning, but the attack left her with severe injuries to her head, neck, and torso, according to autopsy reports. As a result of the accident, trainers at SeaWorld never went into a pool with orcas again. The prohibition was put into effect by SeaWorld shortly after Brancheau was laid to rest, and OSHA then continued to enforce it indefinitely. For years, the federal office responsible for worker safety has been attempting in vain to persuade SeaWorld to abide by stricter regulations. Several of SeaWorld's orca-themed theatrical productions have been decommissioned or entirely discontinued since the park's 2016 announcement that it would stop breeding orcas in captivity. Today, the few remaining orca performances are more in line with how they behave in the wild in the Pacific Northwest, but people aren't allowed to engage with orcas. Number 3. BBQ Boar. In March 2023, 70-year-old Steve Easton was rendered unconscious after he was attacked while trying to shoo wild pigs away from himself and a friend as they were trying to enjoy a barbecue. He was at his vacation home in Otago, New Zealand, when he saw the family of wild pigs in his garden. In the middle of his attempt to get rid of them, he was suddenly attacked by one of the wild boars. He almost took a tusk in the eye when he was struck by the animal, but fortunately he managed to avoid that fate. But when the pig made contact with him, he was sent flying into the air. According to a source, the man was lucky that he wasn't alone, and despite being unconscious, his friend managed to quickly rush him to the hospital. As a result of the attack, Steve suffered a dislocated shoulder. Despite him recovering well at home, his wife Pauline expressed her strong concerns about the rising threat the wild pigs pose to the community. They hoped that the Department of Conservation, DOC, would react quickly to the issue. Unfortunately, though, Pauline said that the DOC claims to be keeping the issue under control, despite the fact that the pigs often show up in the middle of town. She added that the issue has grown significantly since the start of 2023, when pigs started appearing on the local walking trail and on the small town's main road. Steve was considered lucky to be alive, and his injuries were minor, and as the saying goes, it could always be worse. Number 2. Dangerous kangaroos. In September 2022, for the first time in over 80 years, Australia experienced its first deadly kangaroo attack when a 77-year-old man was killed by the wild animal that he kept as a pet. Upon investigation, the man was identified as Peter Eads, Australia's national broadcaster. When a family member found him, they alerted the authorities to the situation. However, the kangaroo blocked the rescue of the seriously injured man on his rural property in Western Australia. The police shot the animal dead after arriving with paramedics, but sadly, Peter had already passed away by the time they arrived. The attacker, a western grey kangaroo, is native to Western Australia. It can weigh up to 120 pounds, 54 kilograms, and can grow more than 7 feet, 2.1 meters, from its head to its tail. Australian law prohibits the keeping of wild animals as pets without a permit. When asked if the man had permission to keep the kangaroo, the Western Australia Police remained silent. In 1936, in the state of New South Wales, 38-year-old William Cruikshank passed away from wounds he'd acquired months earlier while attempting to save his 2 beloved dogs from a huge kangaroo. This was the last known fatal kangaroo encounter in Australia. Kangaroo attacks rarely kill people, but they often cause injuries. For example, a kangaroo in Queensland broke a 67-year-old woman's leg and covered her in cuts and scratches in July 2022. Another woman in the same area was playing golf in April of that year when a kangaroo knocked her down and stepped on her. Then in New South Wales in March, a child was attacked by another kangaroo and sustained severe cuts to her face and back. Number 1. A fierce opponent. A grizzly bear attacked 2 Wyoming college wrestlers who were hunting for antlers in October 2022. Kendall Cummings and Brady Lowry, who were on the wrestling team of Northwest College in Powell, Wyoming, faced a fierce opponent. The first to be attacked was Lowry after he noticed bear tracks on the ground as he and Cummings were making their way back to their car. In the same moment, the bear came barreling out through the trees toward the boys. They had no time to react other than to yell "bear" a couple of times, and suddenly Lowry fell 5 feet, 1.5 meters off a ledge as a result of the attack. According to a statement provided by Lowry, it was chewing on him quite a bit and had a strong hold on his left arm, so strong in fact that it broke. Meanwhile, Cummings threw things at the bear while yelling at him to get him away from his friend. When his efforts were proven futile, he jumped off the ledge and landed on top of the bear. He managed to grab a hold of him and pulled him off of Lowry, and as a result, Cummings became the bear's new target. He too was then tackled and chewed on by the beast. The bear ended up releasing him and walked off, only to turn around and bite Cummings on his face. When the men were separated during the horrifying encounter, Lowry rushed up the mountain to call 911. When he finally managed to get emergency personnel on the phone, he happened to look down and saw August Harrison and Orrin Jackson, who just so happened to be 2 more of their comrades. Harrison then climbed up the mountain to find Cummings, who was limping down the hillside, bathed in blood. Cummings, who sustained the worst injuries during the attack, was carried by each member of the group back to the trailhead. They claimed that it took them roughly a mile, 1.6 kilometers of walking, until farmers and emergency responders picked them up. Thanks to the bravery of all the young men involved, Lowry and Cummings were expected to make a full recovery. Because of this, their bond became stronger, and they became the best of friends. It taught them that you never leave someone behind.
Number 10. Playing dead. What would you do if you were attacked by a grizzly bear during a hunting session? Would you lie down and play dead, or would you try to kill it? A man from Hinton, Canada, in 2015 was attacked by a grizzly bear when he went sheep hunting deep in a remote region. After the attack, the man was smart enough to play dead until the bear left. He then called the province's Report a Poacher line and also 911 to report the incident. In an interview, Michelle Davio, a spokeswoman from Alberta Fish and Wildlife, said while acting dead, the bear stood over him for some time before finally walking away. Her team, who went to the rescue, reported that they found the hunter with a broken leg. The attack happened near the Tech mine site by Cattlemen, which is about 50 kilometers southwest of Hinton. The Fish and Wildlife put together a team of their officers, 2 medical technicians, and 2 guides for the rescue. As the location was inaccessible to vehicles, the team had to hike in order to find the hunter. Michelle even said the team was attacked by a grizzly bear during the rescue operation. Ironic, huh? The officers shot and killed it for the sake of their team's safety. The hunter and the whole group spent the night in the wilderness, as helicopters couldn't reach them due to high winds. It was only on the following morning that the injured man was airlifted to the hospital. There have been at least 5 reports of shooting down endangered species of bears in the name of self-defense. Are these shootings warranted? After all, it is the humans who are trespassing into the bear's habitat. Do you think using tranquilizers would be a better option? What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments section. Number 9. Lost and found. It's wise to plan out a detailed route before you set out on a hunting expedition. It's even better if you have an alternative plan B, because who would want to get lost in the woods? One hunter, though, certainly didn't think it through. Just a few days back, on November 5th, 2021, a hunter got lost in the woods in Muskegon County. The 16,000 acres of Muskegon State Game Area is a very popular area among hunters, especially during October and November. After setting out, this hunter simply couldn't find his way back to the parking lot. In an interview, Mark Cleveland, chief of Eggleston Township Fire, said that the guy was not familiar with the area and it was his first time there. After the sunset, the hunter was able to contact Muskegon County 911, and Michigan State Police was the first to respond. After not being able to find the hunter, multiple fire units, including crew from Eggleston Township, were sent in for the rescue. The man was eventually located using the GPS on his phone. By the time he was found, the temperature had already dropped down to 36 degrees, nearly freezing. The EMS team checked the guy before releasing him. Anna Cullen, an officer from the Department of Natural Resources Conservation, asked all the hunters to plan before going hunting. She even asked them to pack extra gear like gloves, socks, and even a raincoat, as it may save their lives. So next time you plan on giving the woods a visit, for hunting or otherwise, make sure you've done your homework. And maybe don't go out by yourself if it's your first time at a new spot. Number 8. Tied at the wrong end. Many experienced hunters tie themselves to a tree in preparation for a hunting session. But what if they accidentally tied themselves at the wrong end? Mark Sagers from Louisiana, while preparing himself for some pig hunting, ended up tying himself to a tree on the wrong side. Wondering how? After choosing the best tree for his hunting game, he secured a belt to it. As a right-handed person, he mistakenly tied the belt to his left hip. He used a longbow to hunt, so he needed to bend at the left knee and hang from the right hip to shoot. The funny part was that Mark didn't realize his mistake before the prey started coming into the area. Mark said there were a total of 6 hogs that came, and just when he was about to shoot, he couldn't get into his Robin Hood shooting position. That's when he realized his mistake. Although he did try to hunt down one pig, he failed miserably at it. He added that while he was only 12 feet up from his prey, all he managed was to wrestle with his belt. At that very moment, he wished he knew how to pull off a few stunts from yoga so that he could have turned himself into a pretzel and shot at least one pig. The whole hunting session ended with him hanging from the tree and the pig watching him struggle. What a sight it must have been. Have you ever been hunting? Let us know in the comments below, and if you like the video, make sure you subscribe for more content. Number 7. Changed my life. Hunting might come across as fun, but it has the potential to kill or seriously injure you if you don't know what you're doing. In 2011, Maurice Desjardins from Quebec had a hunting accident that disfigured his face. Apparently, he had shot a bullet through his face that left him severely injured. It was a miracle that he was still even alive. Years later, thanks to a successful operation, he was given a new face. The accident had severely damaged his facial nerves, muscles, and bones. So this transplant was a miracle. He went through 4 surgeries, but Desjardins struggled with his daily life and was left with chronic pain despite the doctor's best efforts. With no jaw, nose, or teeth, breathing was made very difficult for him. And so the surgeons created an air passage by making a hole in the front of his neck into his windpipe. With this, he found it extremely hard to even eat or speak. Dr. Daniel Borsuk, after learning about Desjardins' situation, proposed a plan of a facial transplant. Though the operation was risky, Desjardins was ready to take the risk. He said that people used to constantly judge him by the way he looked, and he'd rather die than see those disgusted looks again. In 2018, the doctors put into place what would become the first face transplant in Canada. After finding a suitable donor, they ran all the necessary steps and started the procedure. It took 16 hours to prepare the face, 12 hours to remove from the donor, and 18 hours for the transplant. The blood flow was vital in that operation, and if it didn't stick, the graft would have died. It would be a long way before he could eat and speak to his content, but the surgery was luckily a success. Number 6. Crushed by an elephant. It's one thing to hunt for hogs and deers, it's another to hunt for elephants. Ian Gibson, in the Zambezi Valley of Zimbabwe, was killed by an elephant in 2015. Ian, who was leading the elephant hunting group, spotted the creature and was trying to shoot the elephant when it charged towards them and trampled him. Ian always considered hunting elephants as a sport. He was known to be an experienced hunter. He tracked the elephant and was about 150 feet away from the beast, but the elephant turned around and charged at him. His death was announced on the Safari Classics website. On one of the websites, the writer wrote that Ian was at very close range when he took a shot at the elephant that killed him. He described the scene to be very graphic. The other hunter who accompanied Ian escaped unhurt. However, contrary to what we would expect, his accidental death did not receive any sympathy online. One of the users wrote that the elephant had won and a scumbag lost. Considering many elephant species are endangered, we might have to agree with this anonymous poster. 5. Hunter kills hunter. Have you ever heard the song or seen the video Dumb Ways to Die? Well, in the song, there's a line where it says, "Dress up as a moose during hunting season." And trust us, there are actually people who do this to blend in while hunting. Recently, there was news about a hunter that accidentally shot and killed another hunter who he mistook as a deer. The incident happened on November 25, 2020, at around 7:16 p.m. in Minnesota. The Beltrami County Sheriff's Office received a report from the FBI and the Red Lake Tribal Police about the fatal situation. Apparently, Lucas Dudley was deer shooting in the forest when he was accidentally shot by Rain Stately. Rain allegedly mistook Lucas as a deer. Ernie Beidel from the office of Beltrami County Sheriff said that Rain called 911 immediately after realizing that he shot a man, not a deer. He even cooperated well through the investigation. Moreover, Dudley was not found wearing any blazing orange reflector or clothing with high visibility. The autopsy was conducted at the Midwest Medical Examiner's Office. The authorities did not reveal where the bullet went through or the positioning of the men during the incident. The case is being investigated by the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources Division of Enforcement and the FBI. They have not made any decision whether Rain will be facing any charges over Dudley's death. This is one of those cases where it's hard to place blame anywhere. On one hand, Dudley should have been wearing the proper gear while hunting. On the other hand, Stately should have been more careful about pulling the trigger. Who do you think is at fault? Number 4. Lion's Meal. While you head out hunting to get a meal, it's important to not become one instead. Rangers in 2018 discovered remains of 2, possibly 3 people's bodies in a lion enclosure in the Sibuya Reserve in South Africa. They found a high-powered rifle and an axe, too. The bodies were suspected to be of rhino poachers that had been mauled to death and eaten by lions on a game reserve. Rhino poaching had been illegal for years, and there had been a steep rise in poaching that year. Despite strict actions from the government, illegal poaching has continued. To fulfill the growing demand for rhino horns in parts of Asia, poachers have been trying to make a quick buck. In countries like China and Vietnam, rhino horns are considered to have medicinal properties, though they are made from the same material as human fingernails. Nick Fox, the Sibuya Reserve owner, said that the suspected poachers might have entered the reserve late on Sunday night or in the early hours of Monday. The poachers accidentally walked into the lion's den and were too late to make an escape. They ended up becoming the meal. Nick even said that the team who found them were unsure of how many there were, as not much of the remains were ever found. Police patrolled the area to find any survivors, but we aren't sure the king of the jungle would have left any evidence behind. Number 3. Hunting horror. Some people believe in ghosts and some don't. Whether you do or not, this next story really happened. Shane Kessler shared his horror hunting story in a post online. He wrote that he had to walk a mile through the swamp in Louisiana while coming back from his evening bow hunt. While all he had was a small flashlight, he heard something follow him. He stopped and turned around, but found nothing. Shane started walking again, and the same noise kept repeating. He looked again and again, but there was nothing. He heard coyotes in the distance, but this sound was different. It was as though someone was stalking him. The faster he walked, the faster the sound behind him grew, and by the time he was about to get out of the woods, he was almost sprinting to his truck. He was all alone when then the noise suddenly stopped. Grabbing a gun, he got ready to fight the source of the sound. 5 minutes passed and nothing happened. As Shane was loading his stand into his truck, he noticed that the rope he used to pull the bow had gotten untied and was dragging in the leaves behind him. What would you do? Have you ever been in a similar situation? Let us know in the comments below. Number 2. The deer took my guns. Hunting without any equipment is quite challenging, and if someone stole your tools while you're out there, then it would only make things worse. But in this case, the thief we're referring to is not your fellow human, but an animal. A man's gun in 2020 was stolen by a very angry deer in the Czech Republic. The hunter was hunting for deer in the forest when the angry deer came and stole his guns. Apparently, the animal was scared off by a dog, after which it encountered a group of hunters. The deer then used its antlers to somehow seize the gun and soon galloped away. The gun was an .22 Hornet rifle, but thankfully not loaded. Imagine a deer with a loaded gun. The hunters searched the forest to look for the gun, but were unable to find it. And only then did they decide to report the incident to the police. The police later revealed that another hunter had spotted the deer with the rifle still hanging from his antlers miles away. The police urged hunters to report about the stolen gun if anyone found it. We don't know how many days it took them to locate the thief, but it's been a year, and we can only assume the gun has been found. Number 1. I shot myself. Sometimes during hunting, hunters are so vested in their game that they forget about the loaded gun they possess. In excitement and haste, they might make a deadly mistake. Mike Hendrickson accidentally shot himself in the leg out in Meeker County, Minnesota. His brother-in-law, Matt Pedersen, who started a GoFundMe page, wrote that Mike's gun got discharged into his left thigh while he was climbing up a tree. His nephew, who was with him, went to get help while Mike applied a tourniquet on himself to stop the bleeding. According to the sheriff's office, the officials reported a person getting injured by a gunshot from a hunting accident around 2:40 p.m. Mike was immediately airlifted to the hospital to get treatment. Mike's first surgery revealed a significant loss of tissue and a large portion of the femur bone. In an interview, Mike's family said that he had already gone through 2 surgeries, and there was still a chance he might lose his leg. Despite this, the doctors were confident that he could recover after the 3rd operation. The family was able to raise an amount of $5,000 and are constantly updating about Mike's help in the GoFundMe and Caring Bridge websites. The family is now solely focused on Mike's recovery, and they are giving their best to keep his spirits high. Hopefully, with time, Mike will make a smooth recovery.
Number 10. Fighting at Disneyland. On a trip to Disneyland, a man went crazy and beat up his family. It was July of 2020, and Avery Robinson of Las Vegas was with his family in Mickey's Toontown when things went sideways. Avery and his sister Andrea, and Andrea's husband Damon, all got into a massive brawl. It's not clear exactly how it started, but the end was caught on video in a clip that went viral across the world. In the footage, Andrea can be seen spitting at her brother, who then turned things physical. Avery attacked Andrea, punching and kicking her, and then went after her husband. Bystanders, folks who had just been trying to enjoy their Disneyland adventure, stepped in to intervene. But there was nothing anyone can do as the family tore each other apart. Disney security eventually stepped in to stop the outrageous fighting, but this only led to more violence. When the trio got into the parking lot after being forced out of the park, Avery tried to run over one of the security guards as he drove away. He was also seen threatening to murder his sister and her boyfriend by making a gun with his hand and pointing it at them. Police eventually tracked Avery down and charged him with 5 felonies and 9 misdemeanors. He was sentenced to 6 months in jail. But his sister and boyfriend skipped their court date and had warrants put out for their arrest. We're guessing Disney is not the happiest place on earth for the Robinson family. Number 9. Life in a mental institution. A man in Wisconsin has been sentenced to spend the rest of his life in a mental institution after stabbing 4 of his family members over a feud gone terribly wrong. It all happened in 2020 during the coronavirus pandemic. In March, when global panic was in full swing, Adam Roth was obsessively concerned over what was happening with the virus. He became convinced the virus was coming for him and his family, and that he needed to save them. On the day of the incident, Adam went psycho and started stabbing her. Also present at the time of the stabbing was Dominique's mother, Jelaine, and Dominique's 2 sisters, Desiree and Deidre. They shrieked and told Adam to stop, and that was when he turned on everyone. It was a horrifying and bloody massacre. Adam went completely berserk and stabbed everybody in the house. When all was said and done, Dominique was dead, Deidre was dead, and the family dog was dead. The only 2 who escaped alive were Desiree and Jelaine, though they did suffer significant injuries. And all because Adam had become obsessive over the virus, believing he needed to kill his family before the virus killed them all. Number 8. The Axeman. It was July 4th, 2021, when a father killed a woman and seriously maimed her husband after flying into a rage because of a family feud. The father, Muhammad Malik, was given 13 years in prison after he pled guilty to manslaughter in February of 2022. During court proceedings, it was revealed that he lost control after being provoked by his family in the days before the attack. Muhammad was upset that his daughter married the son of his victims against his wishes. He felt betrayed that his daughter got married without his blessing, angry that she would do something against what he wanted. And so, in his furious anger, he drove to the home of his daughter's husband's parents with an axe and tried to chop them into pieces. Mrs. Ahmed was killed instantly when Muhammad swung his axe at the back of her head. Mrs. Ahmed's husband tried to intervene, only to get on the wrong side of the axe as well. He did survive the brutal injuries, but was left crippled and bloody on the floor of his own house. As for the couple, well, they had actually broken up a little while before January of 2020. But in the months that followed their breakup, hostility erupted on both sides. In July of the following year, Muhammad's daughter complained that her husband posted inappropriate pictures of her on Instagram. This was what ultimately pushed Muhammad into murder. He was already angry that they had married in the first place, but now that they were separated and things had turned ugly, he was really mad. He took that anger out on his daughter's estranged husband's family in a savage and unforgivable attack. Number 7. Murderous Brothers. Thomas Rogers was 26 years old when he died. It was August 22, 2020. Thomas was sitting in his car, minding his own business, when his brothers, David and Samuel, snuck up on him, reached through the windows, and stabbed him to death. Thomas Rogers was killed because of a family feud. The details are a bit shaky, but what we can tell from what was revealed during court proceedings, the feud centered on the mother of the family. The two brothers were upset because of the way Thomas had been treating their mom. He was the youngest son, and apparently the most disrespectful. Whatever he had done to their mom, it upset her to such an extent that the other brothers thought the only way they could deal with it was by getting rid of Thomas forever. The two brothers approached Thomas in his vehicle. David reached through the open window and put a knife in his chest as Samuel filmed it on his cell phone. Minutes after the stabbing was done, David called their mom to say he had sorted out the family issue. He said that once Thomas got out of the hospital, he was going to leave them all alone. What David and Samuel didn't realize was that the knife in Thomas's chest actually killed him. Now the mother is in absolute shambles. She was quoted as saying she now has a permanent physical pain in her chest from losing her youngest son, and at the hands of her other sons no less. Because of their terrible actions, the killers have been given serious jail sentences. David was jailed for a minimum of 18 years, while Samuel was given only 9 years. Number 6. The Yuma Strangler. Deputies with the Yuma County Sheriff's Office responded to a domestic disturbance on a Saturday in February of 2022, just after 3:30 in the afternoon. When the officers arrived on scene, they discovered one man dead and his brother in a state of distress. As it turned out, the siblings had gotten into an argument, at which point one started strangling the other. Adolfo Horos Kempton trapped his brother in a chokehold and accidentally killed him. Sadly, it was just a family feud that got out of control. Adolfo was 60 years old, meaning he wasn't exactly some young punk. He never wanted to kill his brother. Things just got out of hand. Adolfo is now facing charges of second-degree homicide. What do you think these two brothers could have possibly been arguing about that led one to death? Let us know your wildest theories in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe before the end of the video. Number 5. Family Savagery. A feud between two families left a man dead in a pool of his own blood. A father and his two sons are now being shipped off to prison after they committed a savage attack at a gas station that left this individual on the brink of death. Jason Bach and his sons Daniel and Wayne attacked a man named Daniel Penrose and struck him over 100 times. If you've ever been punched in the face once, you can probably imagine just how devastating 99 more of them would be. According to Cornwall Live over in the UK where this happened, the attack was provoked because the two families had some ongoing issues with each other. Nobody can really remember what started the feud. The Bach family and the Penrose family have lived on the same street and been at war with one another since either party can remember. Each side was guilty in this, but the Bach family took things too far. The trio followed Daniel Penrose into the gas station and launched their violent assault on July 15, 2019. Wayne Bach punched Daniel roughly 58 times in the head before stomping on him repeatedly. He also took items off the shelves and beat Daniel with them. And while all of this was going on, Jason, the father who probably should have been a better influence, held Daniel down. Daniel lost a tooth, suffered a fractured nose, needed stitches, and was lucky his entire head didn't cave in. His eyes were swollen for nearly a week, and he coughed up blood for days after the attack. In the end, the only real good news is that it seems the family feud will be over for at least a little while. All three of the Bachs are looking at serious jail time. Number 4. A Christmas shooting. Christmas 2021 was tough for everybody, but significantly worse for a family in Long Island who was torn apart by a crazed maniac. The crazed maniac is Brooklyn bodybuilder Dino Tomasetti, 29 at the time of the incident. He had been fighting a custody battle for his 1-year-old son when things got out of hand. It started as talking, developed into arguing, and spiraled completely out of control from there. The child had been staying with Dino's parents, as he wasn't exactly considered a fit father. But when they started arguing about where the baby should be on Christmas morning at 10 o'clock, Dino threatened to leave and take the child with him. Dino's parents didn't want the baby to leave because they were worried for the child's safety. They got between the enormous bodybuilder, who was able to bench press over 500 pounds, and then things turned violent. Dino pulled out a gun and started blasting. He shot both his parents, and he shot them repeatedly. His father, Rocco Tomasetti, took bullets in the back and one in his wrist. Dino's mother took a bullet to the head. By some miracle, nobody died during the rampage. Dino took off and was apprehended by the police, and his parents were taken to the hospital for emergency surgery. They had the bullets removed, while Dino was locked up on 2 charges of attempted murder. Number 3. The Homeless Brother. A family feud at a popular cafe in Wildwood, Florida, ended with a homeless man being brought up on charges of battery and assault. It happened on a Tuesday night in September of 2020. James Warren Vincent Jr., a man suffering from homelessness, walked into his brother's cafe on Main Street. James had already been banned from the restaurant, but came in anyway asking for food. James' brother said that if he would please wait patiently in the park across the street, he would bring him something to eat. After all, he wasn't going to let his brother starve. Fast forward to the park. James's brother brought him a sandwich as promised, but by now, James had worked himself into a frenzy. He became aggressive, threw the sandwich at his brother, and then chased his brother across the street and into the cafe. The brother managed to lock the restaurant door, at which point his crazed brother pounded on them and screamed profanities. It's important to note that James is a rather large fellow, over 6 feet tall, pretty well built. The patrons of the restaurant were terrified as he kicked and slammed into the door, trying to break it in, as he practically foamed at the mouth. The situation only calmed down when the cops finally came and dragged James away. Number 2. The Missouri Killing Spree. Joseph Jesse Aldridge went on a despicable killing spree that resulted in the deaths of 7 people. The spree very likely started due to a family feud, an argument he had been having with one of his cousins for over a year. The mass murderer began his spree in the small town of Tyrone on February 26, 2015. This tiny Missouri community has less than 100 people in it. When Joseph snapped and started shooting, he went after people he knew. The shootings didn't come to an end until a teenage girl in her nightgown heard gunshots at 10:15 p.m. and fled from her home, looking for the police. When the cops did finally catch up with Joseph, he had murdered 2 of his cousins, both their wives, and 3 other individuals. According to relative Doyle Lay, Joseph had gotten into a fistfight with his cousin Gerald, one of the men he killed, the year prior. It had left seriously bad feelings between the 2 men. Then when Joseph came home on the 26th to find that his mother had passed away of natural causes on the couch, he snapped. He loaded his gun and went to take out his anger on his cousin. But Joseph didn't stop there. He killed his cousin's wife, went after his other cousin, and shot everyone else who got in his way. And in the end, no one survived. And number 1, fighting at the dinner table. Adnan Polinkovic is the teenager from Staten Island who got into a family argument on October 9, 2021, and shot his mother in the chest. It was a Saturday evening, and Adnan was with his mother and father. The 3 of them got into a typical family argument. Adnan, at just 18 years old, was butting heads with his parents. And while most kids may have ended things by storming off to their room, Adnan brought the situation to a close a little differently. He picked up his father's gun and fired across the room. But he hadn't shot his mother on purpose. He was actually aiming at his father. The bullet missed his dad, skipped across his chest, and sunk home into his mother. When the police arrived, his mom was already dead, and his father had a minor cut on his chest from where the bullet had grazed him. Adnan admitted right away what he did. He said to a detective, "I shot at my dad. I did try to kill him." He's now being booked on murder and attempted murder. Number 10. Assault with a deadly beer bottle. South Carolina TV news anchor Kami Jo Rosler got into some serious trouble in 2020 when she smashed a beer bottle over a man's head. According to the police, she attacked the man during a heated debate over politics. Yikes. Kami was 28 years old at the time of the incident and was working as a morning news anchor for WIS-TV in Columbia. She got into an argument with her victim as she was sitting outside in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Police spokesman Sam Clemens said the pair knew each other, but were not in any kind of relationship. They were talking, politics came up, and it wasn't long before things got heated. Cammy took a beer bottle and swung it as hard as she could. She cracked the man over the head, cutting his face open. Double yikes. When the paramedics arrived, the victim refused medical attention and said he would see his own doctor, but Clemens said he was probably going to need stitches because he was bleeding pretty badly. Cammy was arrested shortly after and had her name wiped off the website of WIS-TV. Nobody really knows what happened to her after that, but her photos have been removed altogether from the news site, and her career seems to be in purgatory. Plus, she's facing a charge of aggravated assault and could spend 15 years in jail. Number 9. Naked and asleep. March of 2021 was a bad month for news anchors. Well, it was a bad month for one news anchor in particular. The morning weekday anchor for Fox 5 Las Vegas, Fevin Kiffel-Georges, was arrested at 7:30 a.m. The police discovered her behind the wheel of her Audi, fast asleep. She was also wearing nothing but her birthday suit. When police asked Fevin what in the world she was doing, she said she couldn't remember how she wound up naked and asleep in her car. But you can't really blame her. She would have had to be pretty intoxicated to pull a stunt like that. The cops could smell alcohol from inside the vehicle and wafting off the reporter as if she had worn it for cologne. She declined to give her blood for testing, but the cops charged her anyway. She was brought up on reckless driving and disregard for safety, then ordered to pay a $1,000 fine. She was also ordered to attend driving school, as if that might stop her from partying too hard next time. After a brief time off the air, Fevin finally addressed the public. She said she wanted to keep the incident private, but understood that there was a lot of buzz going on. She admitted to being arrested and said she learned from her mistakes and will continue learning. Unlike some other anchors who made bad decisions, Fevin didn't lose her job over it. Number 8. The Newswoman Con Artist. Wendy Birch was an anchor with KTLA and had worked briefly at Fox 5 in New York. She even appeared on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, but as it turns out, Wendy worked together with a man named Bruce Taylor to scam women out of their money. According to businesswoman Christine Weber from Los Angeles, the duo robbed her of $150,000. Christine met Bruce in 2015 at a restaurant in Santa Monica. They exchanged phone numbers, became friends, and he offered Christine a chance at a business opportunity. Christine didn't think there was anything to worry about. Bruce often texted photographs of himself hanging out with celebrities like Charlie Sheen and John Stamos. They gave him enough legitimacy for her. Plus, his relationship with respectable news anchor Wendy Birch made everything seem just fine. But it was all part of the con. Bruce asked for $150,000 in cash for a new delivery business and promised a 15% return. Christine gave him the money, then went to Las Vegas for a romantic weekend with the man. After he wined and dined her all weekend, he vanished and she never saw him or the cash again. This wasn't the first time such a stunt had been pulled. Bruce and Wendy allegedly worked together to pull these cons off frequently. The two had a child together, and a lot of the money Bruce made went to supporting Wendy's extravagant life. But in the end, Wendy has never been punished. She doesn't work as a news anchor anymore and has been ousted as a criminal. But she's currently living in a condo worth over $1 million with Bruce. And she probably doesn't care what anyone thinks. Number 7. Leaving the scene of a crime. Leon Harris was once a CNN news anchor. After he left CNN, he started working for a smaller TV station in Washington, D.C. But his job is now in serious jeopardy because he's been busted trying to leave the scene of an accident in Maryland while drunk. It wasn't even the first time he got in trouble for drinking and driving. In 2013, Harris pleaded guilty to a DUI. But the most recent incident has proved to be his worst yet. In early 2022, he slammed into another vehicle, which forced it into a third car. Nobody was seriously hurt, but Harris was wasted. He tried to hightail it out of there, only to be stopped by the police down the road. He failed a sobriety test, and then a breathalyzer showed him to have a blood alcohol level twice over the legal limit. The newsman is now facing 9 charges. Some of these charges include driving while under the influence and attempting to elude the police. The station where Harris worked in D.C. says he won't be on air while the investigation is ongoing. In other words, he might get his job back once everything blows over. Do you think Leon should ever get his job back? or all the crimes he commits in his spare time none of the news station's business? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe before the end of the video. Number 6. Domestic violence. A weekend news anchor in Iowa has been arrested for domestic violence. Her name is Danielle Meskel, and she works for KWWL. According to the cops, Danielle beat up her boyfriend. It happened in May of 2021. Danielle was in her apartment with her boyfriend when an argument broke out. Whatever it was they were fighting about, it was enough for Danielle to begin hitting and kicking her boyfriend. She full-on assaulted him. The screaming got so bad that one of the tenants in the building called the police. When the cops showed up, they saw Danielle's boyfriend fleeing the apartment with an ice pack against his face and one of his eyebrows swollen. After the incident, Danielle lost her job. But this is where a lot of the journalists stopped reporting on the case. What happened next is more important. Danielle went to the court and won a verdict of not guilty by unanimous decision. She had been called an abuser by the public and shamed out of her job as a news anchor, yet she wasn't the guilty party. As was revealed in court, she was the one who had been beaten that night. Her boyfriend provoked her into an altercation, put her in a chokehold, and slammed her onto the bed. And all the while, he was yelling that he could kill her if he wanted. Danielle said this was the one moment in her life in which she feared that she may actually die. Desperate to get out of the house alive, she fought back. It was around this time that the cops were called. When Danielle and her boyfriend exited the house, he was the only one with visible marks. He turned the tables on Danielle, telling the police she had beaten him and that he had never done anything. In the end, even though Danielle was the victim, she was chased out of town and kicked off the air. Number 5. Stealing at the airport. Los Angeles news anchor Lou Parker was arrested at the Los Angeles International Airport on November 2, 2016. She was arrested for stealing somebody's earphones. According to the airport police, Lou was booked on petty theft and then released. It happened at about 7 o'clock in the morning while Lou was moving through the screening area in Terminal 6. As she was getting through the security station, she saw the earbuds and put them in her pocket. It proved to be a very bad decision, as they belonged to an off-duty homicide detective. The officer followed Lou through the airport and arrested her after she boarded the plane as a private citizen. Why would a respectable news anchor steal somebody's headphones? According to Lou, it was a misunderstanding. She claimed that she noticed the earbuds and picked them up with every intention to return them to the owner. She had seen who they belonged to earlier in the line, but after she moved from security, she couldn't find the owner of the headphones. Pressed for time, she eventually had to board her own plane. In the end, nobody knows the truth except for Lou. Either this was a classic case of good citizen gone wrong, or she's secretly a kleptomaniac. Number 4. A threat to national security. Australian news anchor Cheng Lei was arrested in China while on a trip to Beijing as posing a threat to national security. It was 2020 in the middle of summer when Cheng was taken into a secret detention center and held against her will. She was only allowed to be visited by Australian consular staff via video, and the Chinese never said why she was detained. It wasn't until quite a bit later that a spokesman for the foreign ministry finally admitted she was under suspicion of carrying out illegal activities. But nothing more was provided. For a bit of background, Cheng was born in China in 1975, but moved to Australia with her family and became a successful news anchor. She worked for a Chinese-owned English-language channel in Beijing called CGTV. Before that, she worked as CNBC's China correspondent for 9 years. Fast forward to today, Cheng is still stuck in China, imprisoned, and unable to contact the outside world. She is a citizen of Australia with 2 kids, who's being held under suspicion of being a spy. And sadly, there's no signs that she'll be allowed to return to Australia anytime soon, or that she's even going to be charged with a crime. Number 3. Solicitation in Texas. Anthony Pittman worked as a morning anchor at ABC 7 from 2000 to 2010. In January of 2020, he was busted for solicitation. Anthony made a pretty good life for himself as a sports anchor and reporter at KABB in San Antonio. He also spent time working in life insurance and volunteering at a church. In 2013, he made the change to anchor at KVII in Amarillo. On the outside, he looked like a perfectly ordinary guy, but at night, he had a hunger that could only be satisfied by paying women to spend time with him. We don't know what he was thinking when he went out that night trolling for females, but we do know he got caught and he vanished from the spotlight. He was looking at a fine of $2,000 and up to 180 days in jail. But we don't know what happened to him. After the arrest, he fell off the map and hasn't been seen on TV. Number 2. Caught shoplifting. Martha Vasquez worked in the broadcasting industry for 35 years and was a respected member of the trade. She was one of the most beloved news anchors in the history of Tucson, Arizona. But in February of 2012, she made a decision that would ultimately ruin her life. Martha shoplifted a hoodie worth $338 and a pair of earrings worth $30. She was busted at the mall and her life crumbled around her. She was banned from the mall, which is pretty embarrassing considering she was in her 40s at the time. And she was booted off TV, fired, in the most humiliating way possible. She was a very successful woman who threw it all down the drain to steal a couple of things she could easily afford. Martha never faced any serious legal consequences. It was only shoplifting. It's not like she robbed a bank. After her career was over and things died down a bit, she agreed to be interviewed by one of her former colleagues at the news station. When asked why she did it, she gave an interesting answer I think we can all connect with. Martha said it wasn't about stealing, but about quitting her job. She claimed to be depressed and stressed because of all the pressure she had as an anchorwoman. She wanted to leave it all behind, but couldn't bring herself to quit. By shoplifting and getting caught, she saved herself the trouble of having to quit the business herself. In other words, it was a cry for help. And number 1, beaten with a garden tool. Ann Presley was beaten to death with a garden tool by a psychotic man named Curtis Lavelle Vance. Ann was a beautiful, talented, and well-respected television anchorwoman in Arkansas. She had a bright future ahead of her, and she would still be alive today. But Curtis, unhinged mentally, beat her senseless in her own home. It all happened when Ann woke up and found that Curtis had slipped into bed beside her like something out of a creepy horror movie. What happened next was terrible and tragic. Curtis beat her with the wooden handle of a garden tool so viciously that her left arm was shattered as she tried to shield her face. This is according to Little Rock Police Detective Tommy Hudson. The attack continued until Ann was bludgeoned into unconsciousness. Curtis broke into her house on October 20th, 2008. 5 days later, Ann was pronounced dead at the hospital. Curtis was arrested by the police and charged with capital murder in November of 2009. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As for the motive, it was completely random. She wasn't Curtis's first victim either. He had a history of breaking into women's houses, assaulting them, and then running away with whatever he could carry.
Do you think you'd have more luck defending yourself against a bear attack or a crocodile attack? Let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.